All right. Do you guys have anything, any questions you would like to ask? And you can ask any kind of question of any type.
Yeah, I have some.
There you go. Let's do
So,
it.
do you have some design exercises that are pretty easy and that no, that are mostly abstract also, so that you're not worried about function or anything, just pure design?
Yeah. One of the things that I would do is just draw graphic shapes and try to make them look good. They sort of look like compositions. I'm like drawing the symmetry right now, so it's going to be kind of weird. But it's like this, like just some sort of like abstract, kind of look like the Wu-Tang logo. But you know what I mean? Like just like try to do basic graphic design. And I mean graphic design the way that you, if you were a common folk, would think of graphic design, like this, the design of shapes and stuff for like marketing, you know? Just
Yep.
basic stuff like this, like just practicing drawing. Like can you make like a box look good with like patterns and shapes, you know?
Okay.
And if you can't do that, like if it's really challenging to do that, then what hope do you have to make like a character look good? You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like it's gonna be so much harder, you know, to draw a design, right? Like a full-on character design if you can't even make like a simple little box look reasonable. And obviously, I'm not trying to downplay graphic design either. I'm not trying to say like graphic design is super easy. I'm just saying like just doing simple tasks, right? Like if you can't make it even look decent, you know, then yeah, you're gonna have a challenge. Like I'm like a decent graphic designer, you know what I mean? Like I use it as a good example or as a good exercise rather to get better at character design, you know? But character design definitely has its different rules. There's different things at play than just simply just good shapes, you know? It's also about like how the forms are put together. It's about the idea behind the concept, you know? It's not just like simple as drawing really beautiful shapes next to one another. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
For
does.
graphic design, it's like it's pure function. Like it's supposed to just be like super beautiful most of the time, you know? Again, a good example of something that like I like to look at when it comes to helping with me character design is like also looking at product design, you know, and production design, and like for industrial designers, you know, because they are not only dealing with like or they're not dealing just with two-dimensional shapes. Does this make sense? Like they're also dealing with like three-dimensional shapes and forms, and that has a big impact on how you design. And so that's why those are really valuable to me as well, right? Because I also design things in 3 dimensions, you know? And so knowing how to design things in 3 dimensions at a very fundamental level is also very valuable. So that's why I think studying how to, you know, paint and design in 3 dimensions is also something you should practice. But obviously, you asked what was the easier thing? That's the easier thing, is just to focus on 2D, like simple boxes and circles, you know? To specifically practice shapes, you know? And if you want to kind of level up a little bit, then start like learning how to do form factor type practices that you'd see industrial designers do. And you can just do that. You can just type in form studies into Google or into Pinterest and you'll find that. And if you just tag it with like industrial design, it'll be even easier to find like the kinds of reference that you would need to kind of follow along with, right? But ultimately, yeah, it's a challenge either way. And then to become like even a like the third dimension to be a great character designer, what is that third dimension? Well, that's like the kind of like what it is you're drawing, you know? And that to me is the only thing on my mind most of the time. Okay. So I don't think about like, well, did I put that shape in the right spot? Right. Like I gave exercises, right? I gave one exercise specifically to John about like literally breaking it apart, you know? Like draw like the big arm and then draw like the components of each of the arms and then draw within those components, you know, like layer by layer, right? Because it's hard to do that just intuitively if you haven't trained for it, you know? And so that's why I give that advice, because I'm trying to help him understand how to do that. And many of you guys can obviously benefit from that same kind of exercise with your own designs, you know? But ultimately, that was like the biggest flaw that he needed to work on. So that's why I gave him that assignment specifically, you know? But getting to answer your question again, like to be simple about this, it's really about making sure that you can design at a very fundamental level, right? And one of the best ways to practice that is as I suggested. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I just
Just,
checked out the form studies, and they look like exactly the thing they looked for. I was doing the boxes before, similar to the way you said, but yeah, the forms look like a
yeah.
good. So
If you're asking for what was the easiest, definitely graphic design. Start there. But if you're looking for something a little bit more challenging, then go forms. It's the same idea. It's like the same principle, but you're doing it in 3 dimensions. You know. But like I said,
yep.
the third dimension is the like what it is you are drawing. A good example of something that does this really well, like I was doing a demo with another artist, and he was before me, and he was drawing like this cool like dog dragon thingy, and essentially was just a dragon or dog with like dragon wings, and it was like the anatomy was slightly a little bit more dragon like, but it was mostly like a dog. You know what I mean? And you know, it was pretty cool. I liked it, and then he drew a little puppy, right? And I was like, oh man, that's so good. What a good design choice that is. Right? Because he's now he took me out of the he's drawing really well. I like the way he's drawing this. He took me out of that mentality to, aw, how cute is that? Right? And then he drew another little puppy. And this puppy was playing, like it was like rolling on the ground. So the awe factor tripled. And then he drew like a little bit of he started illustrating like some sort of like graveyard of like bones and skeletons around this little dog dragon nest, you know? And again, took it to like a whole another level, you know? And what I'm trying to say is like, I'm trying to comment on the idea of like, that is a great example of uh, designing like something that has a cool premise to it, you know? Like it became less about like how he was drawing now, it became more about what he was drawing, you know? And that actually has a lot more weight than just like straight skill, you know? Uh, a good example of this is that like whenever you look at movies and TV shows and video games, you know, there's a big there's a big like, you know, argument about like, you know, some characters being overly sexualized or what have you. And the reality is that no, it just works, man. You know what I mean? Like people will have a very immediate reaction depending on what they're looking at, right? And it might not be like designed like, you know, like the way you would manufacture a design, like the way I explained it. Like when I see a very attractive woman like on the big screen, you know, like it's hard for me not to be like, damn, she's super hot, you know? It's like almost near impossible actually. You know, and vice versa, like when there's like a really handsome gentleman, like it's really hard for me to recognize, or like it's hard for other women to recognize if there's like a really attractive man. There's a Have you guys ever seen the movie Black Panther? Get out of here, wife. She came in here like, what did you say about attractive women? um in Black Panther, like there's a character called Killmonger, right? And it was played by Michael B. Jordan, who's a really handsome man, right? And one of the stories that I heard was that this young girl, she had like a retainer, and like she broke her retainer because she was like grinding her teeth like so hard every time he would like come onto screen, but she didn't notice, you know. She was just like so like attracted to him that she was just like, oh my god, you know. And she like snapped her retainers, Um, and then her doctor, her dentist, like put that story out there. Yeah, he's super handsome, and they put that the doctor put that out there. He didn't like tell it the name or anything. He just said like, this is who, or this is what happened to one of my patients, and then it got viral, and then they found out who it was, and because she admitted who it was, and she's like, oh my god, this is embarrassing. And then Michael B. Jordan replied like, hey, I can buy you your retainers, to her, which was really sweet. But she was just like, no, it's fine. But my point is that like there's a reason why like Hugh Jackman, for instance, is always shirtless in Wolverine, and that's kind of going to the point of like what it is being presented, whether it's a really attractive girl or woman or a very attractive man or boy, right? And so that is another design tool, right? And we don't have to just go on like the more, I just use those examples because those are most obvious and most superficial, right? They're superficial because they're like right on the surface. It's very obvious. But something that's a little bit more nuanced, like we were talking about like old ladies, with I think it was Dominic's designs, right? Like the feeling of just like, oh, that looks like grandma, and how that immediately has an effect on your perception of the design. Yeah, like there's like an immediate relatability or some sort of connection to something that you've experienced in your own life. Like whenever I watch like those dog trailers, they show like movies about like dogs that are like all about the dogs, and then like it shows like the dog's journey, and it's like I always get teared up just watching the trailer because I just like, oh, I remember having a dog and how I was sad when my dog died. Like those movies always do fairly well because of that specific reason. And so if you're designing something and you keep this type of stuff in mind, you can try to make an attempt to put it into your designs. So for instance, this is like very insect-like. So if I really want to keep pushing the insect aspect of it, I think people will find some sort of relatability to this. What tends to do well with my artwork too is that like I draw a lot of like kind of just disembodied feeling limbs and stuff. And so it's more of like what's relatable is that it just feels like there's a lot of different components to the actual design. So hopefully that long-winded answer gives you a more larger scope. Any other questions? My laptop is like, what are you doing? What are you painting right now? Like the fans are going crazy.
I have a question. In terms of like graphic design, are there any characters that stand out to you that have like really good graphic design?
Yeah, okay. So almost every animated film, any good one at least, has this in their character designs. Almost every one, in fact. But probably the best one is probably Kung Fu Panda. All the characters are pretty distinct and very universally different, but also fit some sort of archetype very well. Like I think that film is probably one of the best character designs in terms of just pure graphic design. A character that I think people aren't as aware of that has really good graphic design would be like Bumblebee from Transformers. He's the best looking Transformer because what's going on is that he is filled with a bunch of just random ass car parts and like like just jitter everywhere, right? But he is also half a Camaro, right? Half robot, half Camaro. And a Camaro is like the car he is just all yellow, right? And it's built to look beautiful, right? So him having half beautiful, half kind of robot parts makes him look really good. And it's probably what explains why he had a standalone movie and not someone like Optimus Prime.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, because he's probably more of a, just like ultimately like a better design and than all the other Transformers. I like all of them; they're all pretty great. But like, but I think that one definitely is like the winner amongst them. Movies like movies like Star Wars has tons of it everywhere, right? Whether you hate them or like whether you hated like the Last Jedi, the one that just came out, and a lot of people did, including myself. Um, that scene when they're like fighting, spoilers alert, when they're fighting like at the end with all those red knights and shit. Yeah, that was super dope. It was very, very clean, very clear. Everything was so clear, you know?
Yeah.
And it was just super awesome fight, right?
Even like the stormtroopers, they seem like their only graphic design, pretty much. Like,
yeah, well, the stormtroopers themselves are purely just graphic, right? But that's what I'm saying. Like, it's everywhere actually in Star Wars. Like everything's pretty like well balanced. Like if you think about like the TIE fighters, super well balanced. If you think about even like something as simple as the Death Star, right? On the surface, it's just like a circle or a sphere, right? But then when you look into it, it's like it has like a lot more components on the surface, and as well as like it has like this giant inset like cut into it, you know, which is where it shoots this giant laser, right? There's a lot of that. Star Wars is full of that. I think that's why Star Wars as a sci-fi film did pretty well, you know, because it didn't feel like overtly sci-fi, you know, like something like Guardians of the Galaxy, which is almost cartoony, you know. That's why I think that one did really well. One other, like some video games, I think Mirror's Edge is full of just beautiful graphic design, and again, we're talking purely just like strong graphic design, right? Portal does a really good job, right? Team Fortress, I think Dota is pretty good. These are all Valve games, seems like. League of Legends now is starting to get there. Not in the past. In the past, it was complete and utter chaos. But now, like now that they have money for years, they fixed a lot of the problems. You know, you get what I'm saying?
yeah.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot of good examples. It's just when you're trying to like weed out what makes good graphic design, just think about like how many of these designs you would be you would not be afraid to wear them in public, like if they had like an image of the character just as a graphic read, you know. And I don't mean like you can't wear like nerdy shit in public. I'm just saying like you just know that nobody would know that it's nerdy right away, you know. Like that's probably a better way of explaining that. For instance, if like I had like the portal gun, or like one of those robots, actually that's even better, like on my shirt, I don't think like people would be like nerd, you know. They'll just look like a cool graphic read, you know, of some really cool design.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think something like that fits a good way to determine this. That's why I say like almost all animated films, because you can definitely do that with animated stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like nobody's like looks at you and say you're like a kid wearing like a Mickey Mouse shirt. No, it's like more like, oh dude, nostalgia. You know? Like the Super Nintendo and or not the Super Nintendo, the regular Nintendo is like a graphically a beautiful for all the right nostalgic reasons, even though you know, comparatively it has some of the, you know, it was a pioneer of its time, but like it's definitely has dated games, you know, from all sorts of levels. But it's funny because even pixel art is coming back with a vengeance, and it's becoming clear like pixel art in itself is like, because of it's all graphic, you know, is like there's a lot of value to making a game only entirely pixel art. You can make it look pretty amazing, you know.
Yeah.
So hopefully that helps out. Another quick question: do you plan to make an environment design mentorship? Well, I'm a primary environment artist and would be definitely interested in that. Oh, sorry. When I had one, it wasn't me. It was my friend Kalen. And the way that I run my courses when it's not me is it's just I supplement it. Like I let the people like host on my website, and then they just ask, to be promoted and stuff. And I did that for him and my buddy Dan, and it was cool. But it's up to him. He has a class online at CGMA, I believe. So if you want to do it, you have to go there.
Did you ever have a prop like design class?
Huh?
Did you ever have a prop design class?
Like for concept art?
Yeah, yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so just environments and character.
Yeah, more like larger scale. I used to like mix it up. I would do like a character design class, and then sometimes I would switch it up to like a film design class. But then I realized they all are kind of under the same umbrella.
Okay.
Yeah, I might come back and change it. There might have been some value in doing that before. Uh, I guess I just got lazy with it and just said character design. I think what I was trying to do was I was trying to get to the point where I was just say like mentor, like just straight up mentor, like whatever you want to like get good at, I'll just help you get good at it,
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah.
But it's a hard marketing, it's a hard marketing term just to say mentor because it's too abstract.
Yeah, okay.
Even though, yeah, I think a lot of people would respect what it actually was when they got into it. It's just they don't understand what it is before they get into it. That's the problem. I'm not a big fan of CGMA though. I think your format is way better. I appreciate that. Yeah, I know. Different strokes for everybody. Everyone, and some people prefer to kind of just have like a limited interaction. Sometimes, like not everybody wants to just straight up talk to their instructor. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean like some people just feel a little bit more pressure if they're like have to like show up for class and I'm like expecting something of them versus kind of more of like go at your own pace type of thing. But yeah, I do think that the majority of people do genuinely prefer kind of more of like a hands-on approach to education. I think you're not wrong about like what you're implying, right? I think you're right. Like there is a lot more of a demand of like straight up just talking with me, you know, and especially the way that I do it, I don't necessarily give the kind of pressure that you would expect from like when you see like the movie Drumline. Was it Drumline? No, not Drumline. That's freaking Nick Cannon. The what was that one movie with I can't believe I forgot the name of the movie. It's with the drummer instructor, and he's like, "Yeah, Whiplash." Thank you, man. Drumline. What the fuck? But yeah, Whiplash is a good example. Like where that guy is like super harsh. There's actually been research. I read a couple articles like years ago. I mean, I should look back into it. But I read a lot of books about learning too, and teaching, and it's pretty consistent. All the stuff that I've been reading and like the stuff that I read in the past and stuff I'm listening to now. That just like this approach of just like straight up like shitting on people's days, like just really going hard on them, only works for like very few people. It's not actually a very like if your goal was to try to help people, like okay, so I have like 20 students to say, and they all show up to my class, and my goal as a teacher is to get all 20 of my students to excel at the end of the class or feel accomplished at the end of the class. It doesn't make sense to then isolate like 90% of them because there's going to be 5 of those students who are going to feel real confident even if I'm like shredding them to pieces. They're going to still feel a sense of like, okay, I got to get this stuff done. AJ is demanding this of me, I better work my ass off. Where some students who, when that happens to, they'll quit or they'll drop out immediately, even if they paid like thousands of dollars to take the class in the first place. And I feel like that sucks. That's not a strategy that I want. Like I want to actually generally help my students. I consider myself more of a service rather than some sort of like this is how you got to do it. I also try to supplement it with real facts and real expectations. I don't sugarcoat what is going to be like when you get out. But what I do sugarcoat is, or not necessarily sugarcoat, but what I definitely do is focus on your most immediate problem and help you stay focused on that, versus telling you that, is this the quality you're striving for? What are you thinking you're doing? That, like I said, it's not actually effective on a broad spectrum. And it's funny because I had some students, I was talking to them about this because I guess someone else was asking about different types of schools, and we just got into it like I did right now. Like went on a tangent about it. And some of my students were like, you know what, dude, like I really want that extra pressure. Like you push me even harder, dude. Like let's do it. And I said, look, man, like what I've given you as homework, I feel is good. Like I feel like it's hard. Like I don't think it's going to be easy. And if it is easy, then I'll be able to tell the next time you submit. Then I'll challenge you like incrementally. And they're like, no, like really, like what do you think I need to do? Like tell me everything that's fucking wrong. And I said, okay, because again, I'm a service. I'm trying to help you out. And that's what you want. It's like, okay, I got to do it because you guys support my class and you're really trying to get the most out of it, and this is what you're wanting, then I have to abide. And so I do. I went to town on these individuals. There was only 2 of them, and sure enough, they like started not to submit as much work. They started to come up with excuses, and I'm like, this is not what I wanted. You were doing fine before. Now you're like really falling behind, And it's because nobody really wants to be told how fucking bad they are. Like really, They just want to improve. And this sense of like, really being pushed feels good. It feels like a very like a heroic kind of attitude. But this is real life. People don't actually get better that way. Like for instance, if you look at like gyms, like the gym model, like going to like your local gym. Like for instance, we have like 24-hour fitness over here where I live. And I remember seeing a report about like gyms like this, where if all of the people who signed up for a gym, like all the members, like all the people who are actually members at the gym that I go to, if all of them decided to just show up one day, like all of them, every single one. So you know what? Like today's the day I'm gonna start working out. I'm gonna get my fat ass out of bed and start putting some time into the gym. Get those gains. The gym would be like, not only would it go over capacity, it would be impossible to get in at all. Like a gym that has a capacity for 300 people but has members in the tens of thousands at that local gym, not like across all of California. I'm talking about like in that county. There's like upwards of thousands of people for that one gym. Yeah, it's because they know that the majority of people are just not coming in. Again, they're at capacity at 300. Maybe 100 people show up out of thousands. That's how they thrive, right? So this idea of like pushing people hard makes them work harder is just not backed up by any real data. And people like who experience real like getting shit on it and who do succeed are the exception to the rule. Do you guys understand that? That is not a good model to base off of if you're really trying to be a good teacher. You shouldn't always just pander to the exception. You should try to find a way to get everybody to succeed at their own pace. And I'm saying their own pace because that's true, because some people are going to just do better than others. So then I can push them harder by naturally. Where other students, they need to be nudged slightly, so that they can push more and build more confidence to eventually become that other kind of student who just works really hard, consistently without any real nudging. And I feel like, a lot of people do poorly in different class environments because of like this kind of backwards model of like education. Like many of the instructors, not to their own fault, are really good artists, but they didn't necessarily practice teaching. You know what I mean? They didn't like practice what it's like to actually help people get better. They are just showing people how to paint like them, and that's not necessarily a good strategy for like overall increase in value for that person. And don't worry, man, I made the same mistakes when I first started teaching. So it's not like I was always badass. Like I have great stories about how I changed my mind about this, because I had one student who she was really good, but she didn't have a good grasp of her anatomy, and I was critiquing her on it, and she was really defensive, you know? And I was just being honest with her. I was just telling her like her anatomy is garbage and she really needed to work on it. And I was really brute about it. And she dropped out of my class, you know? And I remember that time, and I was thinking to myself, you know, my goal wasn't to try to weed out the weak. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like this person that's like, well, if you can't fucking handle it, get the hell out. You know, I actually don't like that attitude. It was more like I'm just trying to help her. I'm trying to give her the knowledge that she needs to know so that she can kick some serious butt. But she took it like completely different, and she has this warped perspective of what it's like to be a concept artist because of that experience with me. And I always feel guilty about that. It always kind of like echoes in my mind. And so because the reality is that she was really good. She actually was a good painter. It's like many of you guys, like she was actually better, right? But she just, you know, she just couldn't handle that one feedback. And I learned from that. I learned there's better ways of explaining that you're not good at anatomy, much better ways to explain it so that someone doesn't get defensive right away or someone doesn't take it the wrong way, you know? And so I guess like the point I want to try to get across to you guys is that if you ever feel that that the work is a lot simpler or not as hard as you would want it to be, I don't think it's happened yet. Just trust my insight that I'll be able to determine and recalibrate depending on how you're doing in the class. Just trust the process. I teach a class right now for a brainstorm, and I guess there was a couple complaints. People were like, "Oh, you know, the pace of the class is really slow." And I said, "Okay, then, you know, we'll change the pace." And then now everybody, like, I can see it in their faces that they wish they slowed down. Because with them we have 10 weeks, so I put the first half of the class on purely fundamentals, right? Because I've noticed that in the years of teaching that the majority of my students really struggle with fundamentals, you know? And in the mentorship, we only have about a month together, so I don't really have time for you guys to just straight up focus on fundamentals. So if I feel like fundamentals is a problem, then I'll make that your homework assignment. Yes, fundamentals are hard, but you know what else? Yes, you said it exactly. And boring. They were expecting this high octane, like we're gonna get in there, we're gonna start becoming character designers. And I was trying to explain to them, I was like, you gotta understand, becoming a character designer means you have to have really good fundamentals, right? And I gave you guys plenty of examples earlier in this class about like what that means to have good fundamentals, right? When I was talking to, I think it was Victor, right? About like, you're focused too much on the drawing aspect of it. You're not focused on the design. And that's a problem. I get it. And I gave him a solution to that problem, you know? And he agreed wholeheartedly. He understood immediately, right? But for whatever reason, these guys were not. And it was like, no, we want to go right away. And now like all the stuff that they're submitting, it's like, your forms are really bad, or your anatomy is like off, your design principles are just kind of garbage. And they're just like, oh, but I don't know how to do any of this stuff. And I was like, well, that was the whole point of us starting off with fundamentals. Like I wanted to take that extra time that I normally don't have in my classes to really hammer in that. So the big takeaway that I had as an instructor was I need to find a more like fun way to do fundamentals. Not so much that these guys are just a bunch of entitled brats and they don't know what they wanted. That's not the right attitude. No, they had a genuine complaint, and I respected that, you know? And I actually agreed. What it is that maybe I should have done a better job of walking them through why it's very important, and then also making it really fun, or not fun, but just like it feels like there's a real connection to why we're doing it. And I guess they weren't seeing the connection, but they're seeing it now. And so I just need to do a better job of that. I find learning the fundamentals help me advance faster. Exactly. Oh, it's just character design. It's an in-person design class though. I teach for Brainstorm. It's like it's not my school. It's like my friend's school, and I was trying to help them out because they didn't have instructors, so I'd help them out, and it's going well. And we'll see. Any other questions? Oh, shoot, we went over the time a little bit. It's all right. I'll ask. I'll answer one more question. Any question? Now you'll notice that this painting is getting pretty complex, and but at no point do you feel genuinely that it's still like it's not a bad design. Now, whether you're really into complex designs or not will actually determine whether you like this image. But to then say that this image is terrible, that'll be a harder sell, right? And so that's why I always say, like, it all depends on who your audience is and who you're doing this for, right? Like I'm gonna try to like complete this painting. Probably spend another 15 minutes after class. Do you still draw geometry and puppet exercises? No, not necessarily. That's like a good example of that is if I played soccer and I still would practice like learning how to pass the ball. You know, like at that point, like I don't need to like practice the basic of passing the soccer ball. Like I already know how to do that. But maybe what I'll do instead is practice like a more advanced version of that, like passing the ball. Does that make sense? So for me, like drawing geometry and doing like little puppet drawings is like the very fundamental level of what I used to do. But now what I do instead is like try to construct a full character in a matter of minutes. You know, it's still like an exercise, but not an exercise I would ever recommend to someone that's an intermediate level because it's just too complex. It's too hard, you know? Yeah. So you get it, right? Yeah, I already kind of see the boxes already. I already can see the geometry. It's already kind of embedded, but I did do it a lot, if that's kind of what you're asking, and or at least like what you're hoping. What I was going to say, like, did I do it a lot when I started? Of course. If I still do it now, no, I do more advanced fundamental practices. Yeah, blindfolded, exactly. Yeah, it's just like you challenge yourself at a different capacity. Like when I play with my kids, like playing catch, like we're just practicing just catching the ball. Just catching it. Or staying static. We're about like 5 or 6 feet away from each other, about like a couple meters away from each other. And I just throw them a very soft ball, and they just try to catch it. But my oldest teenager, like he is running and sprinting while I'm throwing the ball like a football at him at full speed, like a bullet. You know, we're not practicing if he can catch a ball. We're practicing if he can catch a ball while sprinting, and I throw it as fast as I can. You know, it's a whole different skill. I would never do that with my little babies. They would be destroyed. And so it's like, yes, to kind of answer this question even at a larger scale, is there like tiers to different types of practices? Of course there is, you know. And so like for me, it's like timing myself to do full paintings in a matter of minutes, like try to get a full painting done in like 15-20 minutes. Try to get like a full rendered thing in an hour, you know, like these types of things. It's really hard to do, but something that most of you guys won't be able to do yet. And I say yet with two underlines and an exclamation mark, you know, in all caps, meaning that it's going to happen if you keep at this. Okay. All right. You guys have been great. Great second day assignment. You guys kicked some butt. Now, remember to try to put a lot of good effort into these assignments so that way I can get a lot of good critiques from me. So you guys did great. You guys are doing awesome. I really appreciate your effort. Don't be strangers. I see that you guys talk to one another. Awesome. Keep that up. And then I'll see you guys next week. Have a great weekend. Peace out, friends. Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to watch more in the future. If you like the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you like this content, you can go to my website, robotpencil.net, where you can find mentorships, tutorials, and a Patreon to get more exclusive content. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in my next videos.